Here we are visiting Coffee War 331 Station. Now, where are we? This is in Chonburi province. It's close to Pattaya, and we're to the east of Bangkok, Thailand. Now, this is October 2024. Now, Coffee War 331 Station is quite interesting. What they've done is they have a collection of old military equipment, helicopters, jeeps, trucks, vehicles, and a collection of airplanes. And here we've bought tickets to fly on the Lockheed L-1011. Now, this is an older aircraft and one of the early wide-body aircraft. Quite an impressive airframe. And here we are, taking a look at the airplane. Notice how wide it is. Look at the seating. Now, it's heavily air-conditioned inside, and there's an extensive cafe. And when you buy your tickets, it also includes a drink. So you get a drink included with your purchase price. And the price is about 120 baht. So that's around $4. But that also includes a nice drink. And if you want to add a pastry or something additional, of course you're certainly invited to do so, and they would like that very much. Very cool, very comfortable. Certainly these airframes do make nice restaurants. And as we move up into first class, there we see the seats are spread quite wide. Here we are in the first class section. Now, this airplane was flying in the 1970s, so it's built on 70s technology. There we see the AC unit, and here we go around, and there's the cockpit, very popular. And there we're looking out, and here we're back in the cockpit.
Go ahead and sit.
All of the controls are early style, analog style gauges. Here I see my steering yoke and my pedals. There we go. All the early flight instruments. There we see the throttles for 3 engines there in the middle, and there's my nose gear steering. That's right, I'm able to steer that nose gear to help me maneuver there in the airport. Now here I actually have a station for a flight engineer. So there's a flight engineer station, co-pilot and pilot station. This is back in the day when they had 3 flight crew members, a pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer. And quite an array of different types of gauges and controls. I see, of course, the spoiler controls, the flap controls, and of course the landing gear. Now, unfortunately, some of the more valuable instruments have been removed, and they have some kind of just, I guess, cosmetic instruments there to replace them. Here, an array of circuit breakers and switches, all kinds. Where this is on a modern aircraft controlled by a computer, back then it was up to the flight engineer. Quite an impressive airframe. Now, of course, the aluminum holds up nicely, and there we see the nose gear. And as we take a look at it, quite an array of cables. Some of those cables are going up in there to supply power to the air conditioning and lighting, of course, in the aircraft. And there we see the hydraulic rams for the steering of the nose gear. And there's a old-fashioned World War II Jeep there parked underneath the fuselage. And you can see quite a bit of wear on it. This looks like it may be a little more of a modern Jeep. Not really World War II. This is probably here in the Vietnam era or even into the 70s. And we see various Jeeps. And notice the Jeep I was in had the steering wheel on the right-hand side. That one has the left. And here we see the engine mount there on the wing. And there, that great big engine is supported on the wing by this mount. And we see, of course, the passages for air and fuel and the electrical control connection. Now remember, back in the day, the 1970s, these engines were electromechanical controls primarily. They really didn't have any type of full authority digital engine control system. And here we see a much smaller aircraft. Some old Army trucks. There we see a helicopter, and that of course is the little Huey helicopter, popular during the Vietnam War. One thing that's interesting that we see lying next to it is a gas turbine engine. Now I was thinking that gas turbine engine came out of the helicopter, but after looking at it carefully, I think that was actually the auxiliary power unit for the L-1011. But there it is. If you recognize it there, say something in the comments. So quite an extensive museum. This is kind of nice because you get to touch things and sit in the airframe of the helicopter or the airplane. Obviously it's been out in the weather, a little worse for wear. There we see our Lockheed L-1011. Now here we see engines there on the, I want to say maintenance stands, and these are piston aircraft engines, and that looks like an impressive horizontally opposed piston engine. It's been in the weather for a long time. Hopefully if it had oil in the crankcase that I should still be able to rotate that crankshaft possibly. It looks like it would take a lot of work though to get those units back in flight condition. Now they have other aircraft. And there we see the helicopter. Now, as we walk along, here is a 737, an old 737. And there we see the mock-ups of the different soldiers and their uniforms. Here we see all different types of military equipment. Here we go. Here's the restaurant, and you can get lunch or dinner there. And there we see the little propeller planes. There you see one of the engines from the L-1011 there in the engine stand, quite impressive.
Okay.
Now here I'm going to venture aboard the old Boeing 737. Now, of course, obviously to go in these aircraft, they charge a nominal fee, pay for the maintenance. Here we're visiting the little surplus store. And what's interesting about this is everything in here seems to be old, dating from the 1960s, 1970s, and the early 80s. All kinds of military garb and equipment. They have some old appliances and electronics. If I bought a VCR, I'd need a conventional tube television to watch it, most likely. I guess some of the flat screens can receive component video or composite video, I guess coming from the VCR. Old uniforms. There you can get yourself a flight helmet. Quite an array. So this is their surplus shop. Now, one thing you're probably wondering, where do these airplanes, how far did they have to travel to get here to this interesting museum? Well, they didn't have to travel far because there's a naval base with an airstrip very close by.